Ben Brown's 100 and early wickets for Sussex debutant Ageas put the visitors to the Ageas Bowl well on top at the halfway stage of the LV County Championship match with Hampshire. Brown began the second morning on 85, made out of his side's 300 for 6, and was quickly on his way again as he produced yet more sublime shots, working the ball with skill into the gaps. This after Brown, along with Luke Wright, had led a recovery from 128 for 5 on day one. Brown received splendid support from Shazad, who was to make a real impression in Sussex colours for the first time after his winter move from Nottinghamshire. A forceful cut off Chris Wood took Brown to the 600 of his first-class career. This match-altering one had occupied 169 deliveries and was reached courtesy of his 14th four. On a very slight downside, he was just unable to earn his side a fourth batting bonus point. His partnership with Shazad was ended in the very next over on 73 when the latter, on a fine 34, played on a ball from Gareth Berg which didn't get up. That gave the former Middlesex all-rounder his third wicket, but he was another who couldn't find his way past Brown. To add to the home side's frustration, they found Steve McGoffin in good nick with a bat in his hands as well. The tall Australian has made some decent contributions in the past, and he was still going here by the time that lunch arrived, by which time Sussex had moved into a strong position on 412 for 7, McGoffin with 37 and Brown on 129. McGoffin added 4 more in the afternoon before finding Sean Irvine in the deep off Danny Briggs, but he had done plenty of damage in adding 73 more runs for the 8th wicket. Timo Mills came and went in a hurry, misjudging a delivery from Briggs to be bowled for a single. But 22 more runs were put on by the last pair, with Brown taking his tally to 144. 316 runs were added while he was at the crease to make all the difference. He was left stranded as Matthew Hobden was bowled by a quicker ball from Briggs, who ended with figures of 4 for 74, as Sussex were finally dismissed in the 143rd over for an impressive 444. The reply by the newly promoted Hampshire was a promising one, with Liam Dawson and Michael Carberry seeing out the dangerous first 3/4 of an hour, in which they knocked off 47 of the runs with few moments of concern. Shazad had been a little expensive in his first 6 overs, but he did have reason to celebrate after beating Carberry for pace to win an LBW, the batsman on his way for 25. Next ball, and Dawson, opening because Jimmy Adams was suffering with a bruised knee, was also heading back for 22, Hobden this time winning the decision after rapping the batsman on the pads. It was 3 wickets in successive overs when Will Smith, so consistent last summer, edged Shazad to Michael Yardy before he had troubled the scorers. 47 without loss soon became 58 for 4, as Adam Wheater also departed for a duck, Ed Joyce with the catch this time as his side began to take complete control. A 5th successive over in which a wicket fell followed as Adams, in at number 6, nicked off to Shazad, who was making a real name for himself on debut. Hampshire then went to the break on 63 for 5, and it was left to James Vince to try to repeat Brown's heroics of earlier, but having got to 37, he nicked off to McGoffin. Berg then fell in the same over for a duck, and Hampshire were in a mess on 95 for 7 and looking at a very large first innings deficit. Thankfully for them, they bat deep, and in Wood they have a man who clearly knows one end of a bat from the other, having scored a championship 100 against Leicestershire in 2012. His first-class opportunities have been limited, but he was soon, and crucially so, making an impact here. He and his team would have been pleased to have someone with the vast experience of Irvine at the other end. When Chris Nash was given a handful of overs, the Zimbabwean, now in his 11th season with Hampshire, took full advantage with some thumping shots down the ground. This, though, was the pick of his strokes, a fantastic smash off McGoffin, who very rarely is treated in such a fashion. Hampshire fighting fire with fire now, the runs rattling along. Irvine was at his 50 off his 69th delivery after what was nothing more than a steady start to his knock. He had by now struck that maximum and 6 fours in what was the 64th half-century or more of the 32-year-old's career. This was a very important one, which was keeping his side just about in contention. The partnership had realised 109 runs in 19 and a half overs when it was ended by Mills, who grabbed his first wicket as a Sussex player to remove Wood just too short of his own 50, Luke Wright with the smart catch. Mills then picked up his second with the last ball of the day, Briggs unable to deal with the pace and bounce of the former Essex man as the ball was only fended to Joyce. It meant that the day ended with Hampshire on 220 for 9, with Irvine still there on 57. The home side still trailed by 224 runs and required therefore another 75 to avoid the follow-on the third morning.